the name of our show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Large Glass. I'm Han Solo. I'm Todd.
And I'm Terri.
How are you tonight? May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with
Happy
you.
Star Wars Day. We're excited to be... there's Sergeant Spider. And Mom. Hi, Mom.
Hello.
We're coming to you live from the Millennium Falcon.
Yes.
And I'm excited about that. I kind of think that's really cool.
Yeah.
So we have a really cool show for you tonight. We're excited about that. We got some stuff to recap from the weekend. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
We got a live artist in the studio tonight.
Me too.
Which I'm thrilled about.
Yes. I think he went to go pour himself a beverage.
He did. I think he's pouring himself a beverage right now. And we'll get to him in a little while after our normal back and forth. I got a few. Thanks, David. Hi, Pumpkin Audrey. I'm on Twitch. There is no picture, but you are talking. Well, that's interesting. We should have a picture.
Yeah, I think.
And everybody else says we look great. So, Mom, that one's on you. And may the 4th be with you, Memory Vessel. Okay, so I've got some Star Wars trivia for the chat tonight. Now, in order to make this right, you got to promise not to cheat. Cheating would mean going out on Google or some other search platform and looking for the answer. So no cheating, no cheating. And Pumpkin Audrey says, we have picture. May the 4th be with you, Ben. Nice to see you, pal. The only thing I wasn't able to acquire tonight were Han Solo's dice and his blaster. I really want to get the blaster, but I'm going to make it. I'm going to make the blaster.
Yes, he actually made my buns before we went on air.
We're going to leave that one alone.
Yes, we're going to leave that one alone, but they're pretty cool, so.
Sherry in the Sky says, looking great. Thank you. And thanks for the follow a little while ago, Sherry. That's awesome. We appreciate that. All right, so I'm going to throw my first trivia question out there for you guys, just so we can get the ball rolling. And then we're going to pour drinks. And then we're going to get in to see our awesome artist in a little while. And here it is for you. Now, I often talk about my Star Wars trivia from the standpoint of the 3 original movies, meaning... we're making the jump into hyperspace right now. It only does this when I get really excited.
Yes.
Sergeant Spider says, broom-handled Mauser, nice. Yes, exactly. And I've seen some really detailed images of it, so I really feel like I could fabricate a very, very realistic one. Trivia question time. Now, these trivia questions that I'm probably going to ask tonight will all refer to the 3 original movies. Star Wars 4 from '77, Star Wars 5, The Empire Strikes Back from 1979, and Star Wars 6, Return of the Jedi from 1982. Correct me on those dates, but I think I'm right on. So the first question is, in those 3 movies, in all 3 of those movies, there is only one non-Jedi to use a lightsaber. Only one. Who was it, and when did that non-Jedi use a lightsaber? All right, so that's our trivia question. Tonight we're going to drink.
Oh, yes, we are.
Yes, we are. So, not to be redundant, Ben got it already. Ben,
what?
when was it? Yeah, it's Han. When was it? Dang, people don't normally...
R2D2.
Well, while he did eject a lightsaber in Return of the Jedi out of his helmet to Luke Skywalker at the Battle of the Sarlacc Pit, he did not in fact use it. So, good try. But it is Han. Ben got it right, but I want to know when to cut open the Tauntaun. Yes! Yes! Damn, that one usually takes forever!
Wow.
Tonight we are drinking Coney Island again, because our artist hails from both Pittsburgh
and Brooklyn. Yep.
All right, so you've got the Mermaid.
The Mermaid Pilsner.
And I have
the Merman.
The Merman.
Yes. I do like the illustrations on these cans. They're pretty cool.
I love the Merman can.
Yeah.
He is looking good.
Yes, he's looking like what's his name? The guy in Game of Thrones,
Oh.
Jason. I can't remember.
Yeah, the big,
Yes,
handsome,
the big,
strapping man.
Strapping man.
Here is episode 36, because we're counting the opening at the Hunter and Art Museum as
It's
35.
35.
So
There you
happy
go.
episode 36. Thanks for hanging in there
Yes,
with us. This
thanks.
is awesome. Happy Star Wars Day. Cheers. I highly really thought about doing the cantina, being in the Star Wars cantina.
Oh, that would have been a good one.
There's just one thing: you can't have the cantina without the cantina music. Max
Oh.
Rebo's little.
Well, could you play it very softly though and talk?
We'd have gotten nailed for DMCA.
Oh, yes, we would have.
So actually, Max Rebo was part of Jabba the Hutt's band. The band in the cantina was different. Momoa, Jess Park.
Why, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Han shot first. Agreed, Mike Rader. Agreed. And I don't want to dwell on Star Wars too long because I don't want to bore people that are not into Star Wars. They're probably rolling their eyes that we're sitting in the Millennium Falcon already. However, the whole Han shot first thing, I have very, very rare DVDs that has that original episode on it, and I have 2 sets. Two. So, yes, appropriately he did. All right, so let's get down to business here. We got a few things to
We do
cover
have
in
a
our
couple things
business
to cover.
lineup. First things first, we got a new thing we want to do, and Ken Millington, wow, thanks for the follow, Ken. That's really nice. I appreciate that. Glad to have you here. So we got a new thing we want to do as a little segment, and it's a quick one, and it's going to become a weekly thing that we do every week. We want to thank one of you. We want to celebrate one of you and just say thank you to a follower. And I really feel like that's, I really feel like we've been holding off on that for a long
Yeah.
time. And who else is we got? We got Gregory Lutch is now following. Thanks
Yeah,
for that.
I do have to say, it's the people coming to the chat that make the show, because this way we can all talk about art. And it's hard to do that right now. It's getting a little bit easier now that restrictions are lifting and people are getting vaccinated, but this is the biggest thrill to me, is coming here and talking about art and,
Yeah. So each week we're going to pick one of you to throw a little celebratory fireworks at, and so tonight we're going to throw those celebratory fireworks at you, Ben R. Hagenbush, because you have been here for every single episode, including Sundays, without fail. So thank you for that. We really appreciate having you along for the ride. You're awesome. We're going to do this every week. We're going to thank one of you. So kudos to you, Ben. Thanks. Okay, so now we move on.
Now we move on.
We got to move on to news.
We have to move on to
I have a very cool news segment for tonight. At least I think it is.
Okay.
I think it is. All right, so I was looking around in the news segment, or I was looking around in the art-related news of the world for something that might relate to either Star Wars Day or the artist tonight. Now, the artist tonight is Mr. Mike Rader, which I'm really excited about. And I thought that this was just the most perfectly timed piece of news that we could have had. So in I believe it's Val, Norway. I believe it's pronounced Val, V-A-L-L-E, but it could be Vala, Norway. These images, these drawings in rock that have been not only discovered, they were discovered in about 2017, but recently they were confirmed as being the oldest nautical images on Earth, and they could be about 10 to 11,000 years old. Now, the interesting thing about these is they are drawn to what is believed to be to scale. Okay, so the drawings themselves are over 4 meters long. And so when you look on the actual rock surfaces, and this image, if I go back to the first one, there's a tracing over that. So that top image is actually what you would see if you went there. The middle image is a digital tracing over it to just kind of, suss it out and give it a little articulation. And then the bottom one is, of course, without the image behind it, so you can see what it really looks like. And there's something really interesting to me about this. Here's another image of those. You can actually see them on the surface of the rock. In all of the scholarship that surrounds these images, they were talking about the way in which they were dated. They were talking about the theories behind how the rock broke apart. So there's a good section of the stern of the boat missing because of either erosion or possibly an earthquake. there's all this scholarship around these drawings with very little indication as to what they were for. They assume that these are just very large drawings of a boat. I have actually, and I believe so has Mike Rader, made several boats. And the thing that stands out to me most about these is these are patterns. Because a lot of the boats in Norway at the time were made from skins. And even if they were made from wood, which wood wasn't really abundant in this place, apparently. I mean, you can see trees in the background, but it's not the type of place that you'd want to build a dugout canoe. But even if it was wood, this could still be a 1-to-1 scale pattern. And I'm really curious to like see if that is brought out in these pieces. And so, you know, if you look at this image of this boat from Norway, you can actually see it. It's an identical boat, right? And it's approximately, I'm gonna put this one, they ranged in size from like 4 meters all the way up to 10 meters long, some of these boats. I mean, 10 meters, it's a 40-foot or 30-foot boat.
Right.
Which is incredible. So it's really interesting that these 11,000-year-old drawings might in fact be patterns that were used to make these vessels, which is, you know, really kind of cool.
Yeah.
So that's my news story for tonight. And if you want to check that out, you can go to the art newspaper and have a look. It's in there.
Considering some of the subject material tonight, it is very interesting.
Well, it is, because I think, you know, in relation to Mike's work, it's interesting. It kind of works in relation to Star Wars Day if you just refer to this as a ship. It's not really a ship, but
Yeah.
anyway. All right, so let's see. We got to do the birthdays. You want to do birthdays?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot this week.
No?
No. But
Okay.
there's a big one today.
Yeah, and who is it?
It's Keith Haring.
Yeah.
He was born on this day in 1958. So died a little too young. He died
Died a lot too
31.
young.
Yep. But he's best known for pop art, graffiti art, street art,
Yep,
all that good stuff.
And we miss him. We miss him.
do miss him.
Beautiful person. And we also have
Alex Webb.
Alex Webb.
Yes, and he's a photographer.
Yep.
He was born on the 5th of May in 1952. And he's best known for his photography dealing with serendipitous moments. That's kind of how
Enigmatic
his-
compositions. Yeah, there's
There's a
usually
lot.
some kind of like political tension in them
Yes.
to some degree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great work. Great work. But those are our 2 birthdays.
And that's it. Usually it's such a big segment. But
Well,
this week not so much. But
not
that's
so much.
okay.
Happy
Yeah.
birthday, Keith. Happy birthday, Alex. All right, so let's hold on a minute. I just totally screwed that up. There we go. Let's get rid of that, and let's go back to where we belong here. So, one thing we always do before we jump into our artist is we talk about ways in which you can support us, right? So the biggest way that you can support us is get the word out about our show. Tell friends to come and watch, and when they're here, to leave a follow. By the way, that turn that we just made, that bank turn around the Death Star, just totally tacky After Effects, really bad hinging right there. Oh no, that was Premiere. Anyway, totally spoiled the moment.
That's
But please tell a friend that we're here. Tell them to come watch us. We would love that. You can also jump onto our Patreon page if you want to actually become a member of our Patreon, where we give you special access to things and unlock certain fun stuff. So, you know, it's just a thought. We like that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Should we get down to business?
Let's get down to business.
Would you like to please introduce Mike? Could you do that?
I could certainly do that. So we have a very special artist with us
Yes, we
tonight.
do. Yes, we do.
We have had him on the show before, but we did not give him enough airtime. I felt like we had to bring him back. We unboxed his cards, and it was so casual. We didn't give him a great introduction. Just like right now, I didn't even say his name, and we're talking about him again.
We're talking about him, and I really wanted to have the curtain up so we could hide that awesome Darth Vader mask, but
Yeah.
and here's the problem: we're circling the Death Star right now. I mean,
We are circling the Death Star.
so we had Mike on the show once before when we unboxed his cards, and it was the first time we ever had a live artist on the studio.
Yes.
Right, or on the show.
Yeah.
And I thought it went very well, but again, I thought that we kind of really needed to kind of give him and his studio
Yeah, because
his
he's so
due.
fantastic.
Because he's brilliant.
And he works in all these different disciplines, and they all complement each other and work together, and it expands his artwork. So tonight we have Mike Rader with us tonight.
Hi, Darth Vader. How you doing, buddy? Don't forget to unmute, by the way, in case we can't hear you, or just in case.
Todd and Terri,
Hi.
I am your guest.
Yeah. Hi.
Thanks for having me on the large glass.
And cheers to you, Mike. Great to have you on the show. We love it. You might have to remove that mask, though, to...
Okay.
Cue the...
May the 4th, it's a treat to be here. It's
May the 4th
thank
be
you for
with
having me on this day.
It's an honor to have you, and we really are looking forward to tonight. A guy in our chat named Sergeant Spider just said, "Cue the Imperial March in your minds." So it's definitely going through my head. So let's see, where should we begin tonight? I mean, we've got some work up.
Well, I did bring backup too, in case I need to get any help behind me.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
To keep with the thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I pulled up an image to start us off to kind of get us talking about some of your beginnings. And I don't know how long the delay is over there, but I've got an image up on the show right now of Harold and the Purple Crayon, because I feel like that's a great place for us to kind of get attuned to your work, your practice, and kind of where your thinking is. So can you speak to that for a little bit and how that plays a role in your work?
Yeah, thanks for putting that up, Todd. It's hard for me to talk about the book without sometimes getting emotional because it meant so much to me.
Oh shit, I'm starting in a bad place. I'm sorry.
No, it's a good place. It's a good place. But Harold and the Purple Crayon is a book that I checked out in first grade, and I went to the library, and that was back when they stamped, you signed a little book. And I remember checking it out so many times that it just said Mike Rader, Mike Rader, Mike Rader, Mike Rader, all the way down. But Crockett Johnson, of course, the author of this book, it's wonderful drawings. And here's Harold, who has a crayon or pencil, who is able to draw and make his own worlds and then sort of live in it and be in it. And Harold sort of experiences life through the filter of his crayon. But he's also a world builder, which I think that's what I ended up being a lot of as an artist. And I never, that's nothing I ever intended to do. But I look back about 10 years ago on this book and thought, man, this is maybe where it all started. Yeah, I love this book.
I love
it's the only book you have to read. Don't believe other people when they say you should read.
This is it. Well, no, but I love this reference because Harold in this book also functions really intuitively in certain spots. There's a spot in this book, if I remember correctly, where he falls off of a mountain and draws himself a balloon that he falls into, like a hot air balloon. And so it's situational, right? I mean, in some cases, he's kind of drawing, he wants to walk by the light of the moon, so he draws the moon, right? But then there are situations that crop up that are, that he has to kind of respond to. And so it really kind of talks to, I think, the studio situation in a really cool way. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's great that you say he falls and then draws his way out of it, because for me, art has always been the way I sort of deal with life and use it as a way to sort of understand life. So when Harold's drawing, I use the same sort of mechanism, but in a different way than Harold did.
Right.
There's also a great boat drawing in there to go with your start of your show.
Oh yeah, that's
where Harold
true.
draws the boat. Yeah,
and it's just his little head sticking up from out of the boat as he sails along.
True.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, good. I mean, I love having a reference like this in the beginning.
Yeah, and it does put into perspective some of those bigger worlds that you're creating. I know when I was going through a lot of your pieces, so many of them are interconnected, and it's not just one discipline. They all kind of fuse together, and we get to see you work through many processes.
Right. I'm just popping images up. I'm not saying let's talk about this image. I'm just kind of
I actually tried to get a hold of this film. Can we get this film anywhere? I've seen little clips of this.
I don't think this film is up anywhere. Is that right, Mike?
I'll send you one.
Ooh.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll send you one.
The film that we're referring to is Mike's film called Man versus Ultraman. And Mike, it's won several awards. It has been in a couple of festivals. You've screened this in some fairly sizable places, correct?
Yeah, it was good to me. I'll make sure I send you a VHS copy too. You still have a VHS?
Oh.
Awesome. I got one on the Falcon here.
No, I have DVDs and nobody wants them anymore. You know, it's not a format anymore.
Oh, I have a DVD player.
I have it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have
me
one.
too. But you know,
Most people want to stream it. Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
It's true. It was up streaming for a while on maybe the Brooklyn Film Festival site. I think it's down by now.
Mm-hmm. It is very hard to find, and I actually was unable to find it. There's a lot of stuff going on in the chat real quick that, oh, Ben, I'm looking up at you. It's like, I love you, Todd. I miss you, man. That's good. I love you too, buddy. Sergeant Spider, blah, blah, blah. I can't breathe in this thing. And then David Backus says it definitely needs to be seen. Gregory Lutch says it's a great time. Or it's a great film. I don't have my glasses on. Let me fix that. I don't look like Han Solo with my glasses on, but I'm just going to have
Thanks
to
for coming, Greg.
And Sherry in the Sky says such a great film. Absolutely. So let's talk about this a little bit. I have the trailer available, and I also have the one clip that you have available up online. But, you know, I think before we...
Dive in.
Huh?
Before we take a look.
Yeah, because I don't want to make this about Mike Rader, the filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mike Rader, as a studio or looking at the studio practice as a whole, is so much more in depth and interesting.
Well, I don't think we can define you as anything in particular because you do use all the disciplines in your art making. They truly complement each other.
Well, and also, you know, the crossover to me, Mike, has this kind of other layer to it. You know, the paintings are sculptures, the sculptures are paintings, the performances have, you know, paintings that are in them, worn in them, you know, made in them. But there's also, like, even in the films themselves function like sculpture, function like the studio, function like painting. And in some way, the interweaving of art and life and all of the disciplines of art is so tangled, and in a good way, that you can't just slice it apart that neatly, which I love.
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself a filmmaker.
No.
Or any discipline, because I like to say I don't love filmmaking. I don't love animation. I don't love painting. I don't love sculpture. I don't love printmaking, which I went to school for. I just love making art.
Yeah, I think that's really what it's about. I want to pop over, and I wanted to look at really quickly the Man versus Ultraman trailer. Can we do that? All right, let's go over.
Yeah, go
here.
for it.
And unfortunately, the engines on the Falcon just cut out because we're actually going to watch some video. So let me just take a second to get that going here. I've got to get rid of Mike for a second. Sorry, Mike. We'll be back to you in a little while. And I think if I hit this button, I will have it. So let's see what we've got here. Okay. And then, and Eric Norcross just followed. Eric, thank you for the follow, and I love your podcast. So that's awesome. It's an honor to have you following. All right, let's see. Can we also do the one clip from this as well before we jump into talking about it? Hold on. We don't want this.
Hey, Todd, you want me to set up the clip a little?
Do you want to? Yeah. Why don't we set it up a little bit so we could talk about it? Let's talk about it first.
First of all, seeing that trailer. I don't know about that. I have to recut that. Speaking of Eric Norcross, he's the fastest editor in the East here. Maybe Eric can recut that for me.
This might work out to be a little job here. This is good.
So this clip, I'll rewind to the beginning a little bit. Ultraman is a TV show, a Japanese TV show from the 60s, where the hero could turn himself into an Ultraman and turn into this giant guy and fight evil. But in the show, I was watching it, and I noticed that the hero of the show holds up this silver phallus, straight up silver phallus, and pushes a button and turns into the Ultraman. And as watched it as a kid, it's a rubber monster show. No pun intended with but so as an adult, I watched this. I was like, wow, that is really wacky. You see it with such different eyes as an adult. And at the same time, I was going through this stuff about masculinity in my painting. Like, I was trying to make my paintings prettier, but then every time they got prettier, I uglied them up because of some discomfort I had in myself. So I was sort of noticed that around the same time. So I started putting all these factors together and use this vehicle of Ultraman to sort of explore where I am sort of with my masculinity in my art. And does it get in the way of a larger picture? So what you're going to hear in the soundtrack is actual people talking in the show, because I use the show as a script to sort of rewrite my show. So the rest of it was done here in the room you're looking at. And I built the sets, and it sort of has this aesthetic. There's no Photoshop going on. I had these explosions you're going to see. That was also flash pots I did in the studio, which was like a dream come true.
Nice. I wondered about that.
Yeah. I stepped on that model, which I took like a month to build. Also like a dream come true. But you also notice, like a nod to abstract expressionists, right? Which is, and for the other viewers out there, it was this really macho time for painting, really large paintings that people threw paint around and got drunk in bars and punched each other out. So you'll see like a nod to that about 3/4 of the way through the clip. Maybe you can talk about it after time, but
okay.
I think that's enough setup, right?
No. I think that's great. Let's throw this on. I want to take a look.
Are you here for you or for the painting?
I'm not sure about it.
Then why come here now?
To increase the chances of certainty.
But you've made the work so far.
That's right. Created with these two hands. The work of a genius. Why? I'll find out the truth.
All right. So, hang on one second. There you are. So there's so many things I want to say about this right off the bat. You know, like you were talking about the abstract expressionism part in this and the nod to that, but I also feel like there are so many, you know, really fantastic takes on the artist's persona, the struggle, the masculinity, the fragility. There are so many different ways in which you approach that in this. The anger, the rage. I love all those things intertwined in this. And on top of that, it's done through this kind of like classic Godzilla-esque low budget set of models. There's the monumentality of the artist like stomping through the land. There's just so many cool things going on.
It's also very playful in a way. It brings you, there's a nostalgic element to it because it reminds you of going back to your childhood and dealing with some larger issues through the context of play.
Yeah.
That was one thing that struck me with this. I love how all the elements in there are very sculptural as well. Like the clouds, I love the clouds in there. I would love to own one of those clouds and have it in our house, you know, because it's a beautiful piece of art. So there were like all these other things, like Mike's work goes so deep and there's all these different elements. It's hard to like wrap your head around it sometimes.
Yeah, that's a really good point because the clouds, the paintings, the sculptures, I mean, in the end, we almost get too wrapped up in the film and forget that this is also taking place inside of a piece of art while a piece of art is being created.
Yeah,
like there's so many
elements of fashion design in there. You have elements of painting, you have sculpture, you have installation, you have all these things.
And I mean the obvious performance,
together,
right?
Yeah. And then you're working in this one way that's got these nostalgic remnants of childhood and Godzilla, but it's very you know, you're dealing with masculinity and being a man and being an artist, and there's a lot of layers. It's like an onion of art. You just have to keep peeling it away. And
how was that, Mike? I think that was, I mean.
Yeah, that's why I'm excited to be on this show. I need to learn about this too. I don't know half the stuff that's going on in there. This is fantastic.
All right, that was
I
unnecessary.
don't think we're supposed to know everything though that's going on. That's like the beauty of it, because you're like, wow.
No, I'm kidding, of course, in a way, but a lot of it was, some of it is storyboarded out, like with stick figures, real quickly, but a lot of it was intuitive, and then I put it together later, and I look back on it at different times and think, oh, that's what I was doing.
There's hang on. There's some things that are being said in the chat I got to tell you about over here. So first of all, Eric Norcross did say, I got you, Mike, I think in terms of the editing earlier. Ben Hagenbush says, I'm so enjoying this. Boo Jazz says, this reminds me of the kind of short films I'd see on a show called Image Union in Chicago. Don't know if you know that.
No.
Poster 333 says Jim Nolan said he has seen the movie 100 times and still laughs at the paintbrushes falling out of the bum. Genius. And
Image Union, I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, every time I see that too, when he's just pulling paintbrushes out of his rear end, it's just like, he's pulling it out of his ass. So I really feel like this is a really great place to start just in terms of your work, because it shows that complexity. It shows the crossing of all of these areas. But I want to jump into a few other things as well.
I brought this as a show and tell, since we're in the studio. First of all, this was the model.
Oh, nice.
That was just in that.
Wow.
And really, this is a sketch. You know, I'd make these models as sketches for the larger painting, which you could see being worked on in there. I mean, it comes through as a helicopter that it's so ridiculous when you put a helicopter sound to this thing spinning, but the mind sort of accepts it. That's just how I sort of sketch a lot of those bigger pieces. So it's kind of like drawing to me, but with a sculpture. You know,
Well, I always
I
found
see everything as collage, so
I was
you
going to
can-
say I've always found the drawings of sculptors to be far more interesting to look at because there's a connection between that drawing and the immediacy of making that a sculptor might actually engage in when they're tinkering with materials, right? There's a kind of an immediacy to that. And you mentioned the ridiculousness of applying a helicopter sound to that, but I think you and I once spoke about the show The Prisoner with Patrick McGoohan. And how, remember the rover? It was just basically a big inflated ball that functioned almost like this helicopter does, right? It goes out and performs a protective kind of duty. And then Bujaz says Image Union was classic Chicago PBS TV. Oh, and Poster 333 wants me to remind everybody that Mike made the soundtrack on that as well, which I did forget to mention.
Yeah,
so bring in film composition, bring in, you know.
And Sherry in the Sky says the lighting, the editing, all of those things as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it really is.
I love Sherry in the Sky. She's the best.
I've heard that. I think you've said that before. So, Memory Vessel.
The music was kind of important to me, and that comes from. I was inspired by Charlie Chaplin, who made his own music, who's one of my favorite artists. But also, I was a clarinet player in like the 3rd grade, 4th grade, whatever, maybe 6th grade. And I was an epic failure. Like they sat me in the last chair, and I had to walk by everybody as I sat in that humiliating last chair. I was terrible at it, and I never touched it again. I still don't think I'm very musical. But, I got the keyboards and sort of put the music together with a collage mindset.
Right.
And it didn't turn out maybe the best, but I had a ball making it. So I appreciate that shout out about the music.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really great point. Memory Vessel just pointed out the number 6 from The Prisoner and mentions that that's Care of Moped Vagrant. So can we possibly talk about another piece now? Because I'm really trying to get at your process and this notion of performance, the artifact associated with the performance, the sculptures that kind of go with that. But I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about adjusting the ballast and show that a portion of that video. There's some things I kind of want to ask you about with that. And is that okay?
Okay, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, cool. So this is adjusting the ballast. Do you want to lead us in on this one and talk about it before I start it, or?
Well, I was invited by my alma mater to come and do a show, whatever I wanted to do, at the gallery there. And this is in Pennsylvania, in Edinburgh, Pennsylvania. So I proposed something to them. They said, do whatever you want. And I wrote up a proposal, and they said, you can't do that. So then I wrote up a second proposal, and they said, yeah, that's not, you can't do that either. But that second proposal led me to the idea of thinking about a boat. And what I did there was I pushed a boat from my first landing spot in college, a college dorm, to the gallery there, kind of misusing this vessel. And it was something to do about how I misused my college education or something like that, or I wasn't prepared, or I wasn't buoyant enough to stay afloat. And because I pushed the boat, it made a drawing in the pavement, this line, this sort of crooked zigzag line all the way from the dorm to the gallery. So I'm not sure what part you're going to show, but that's. And then there's a painting that goes with it and some large sort of memory rocks that get used.
Well, that's actually, I kind of want to, I'm going to push through it and jump ahead in certain spots, but I think there's a few key moments in this that kind of begin to point at some of the studio practice that I think I want to, talk to you about. But
Okay.
let's pop this on and see if, let's go here. Here we go.
I don't know if it's the delay. There's no sound.
There's no sound. There should be sound. You you guys have sound on this? Mike, are you okay if I push a little bit ahead? Because I want to watch the whole thing, but I feel like we're going to go... All right, I want to pop just a little bit ahead here. Wait, not there. Hold on. Oh, you already made the painting here. Hold on. There we go. I'm going to pause for a second because, so first of all, Gregory Lutch says, having been Mike's roommate for years at EUP, I can tell you it's a significant distance from point A to point B. There's so many things I want to talk about with this video with you, and it stems from a lot of things, from some things I'm reading into it a little bit, maybe too much, in terms of, there's also elements of studio practice. There's all kinds of stuff going on in this. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to ask you one thing that just sticks out at me like crazy. And I'm dying to ask you about this, but I'm just going to say one word and see if it resonates. Fitzcarraldo. You're muted, I think, by the way. Can you unmute?
Yeah, that's great. I love that you say that. Now, I don't think, for me, this was a really emotional sort of journey. So
of course,
I would love that you read into it, because it was an epic, like 4 days or whatever I was there, and revisiting some place I hadn't been to in 30 years. Everything's fairly the same. But, after I pushed that and I was editing it at night for the show, which opened like a day or two after that, right? I said to the guy who ran the gallery, I think I just made Fitzcarraldo.
Oh, good. I thought I was way off base there. So for those of you who are watching and you don't know what Fitzcarraldo is, Werner Herzog, who is a filmmaker, made a movie called Fitzcarraldo with Klaus Kinski, who is a notoriously insane actor. And frankly, Werner Herzog is also a really, really difficult person to work with. And they both had their ideas of perfection. They both had the different things that they would not compromise. But the movie Fitzcarraldo is the story of a man who wants to bring an opera house to the rainforest jungle. And so he hatches this crazy plan to do it. He packs a riverboat full of all of the supplies he's going to need, and he has to take a trip up the river to get to the location where this opera house will be built. And he wants to bring opera music to the natives, right? Along the way, though, trees fall, block the river's basically blocked. And he has to decide, Klaus Kinski's character has to decide how to get the boat to where it's going. And they decide they're going to push it up over the mountain, this humongous boat, up over the mountain by hand, a feat that no normal person would consider doing. And not only was the story insane, but Werner Herzog himself, when he got the movie approved to be made, also said, no, we're not going to use models. We're going to push a real boat over a South American mountain between two rivers. And so it reminds me. So first of all, there's disaster, there's strife, there's a lot of anxiety in the film. But there's also a certain kind of sadness to a dream that he's trying to fulfill. There's triumph in this as well, right? But it's like the plight of the artist in all of. I mean, he basically employs hundreds of rainforest native culture to sort of help him in this endeavor. They build this massive winch system up the side of the mountain to help sort of very slowly inch this boat through the mud. And it's the effort of like one, frankly, very wealthy, he's always in a white suit. His hair is white. He's the polar opposite of every person that is from this area. And he's kind of there asking for the world to move this mountain for him, right? And it's both beautiful. It's somewhat oppressive. There's a lot of things going on in there. And watching you push that boat, throwing things out of it along the way to try and give yourself a better grip on that boat, and just the whole creative act, right? And how it kind of related to that. Boats to me are really incredibly symbolic and have a kind of very, very layered connection to the psychology of a person. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I just talked a lot. And
Yeah, that throwing things out of the boat is what the ballast comes in. You're sort of adjusting this mental weight that you have dealing with the past and dealing with this trip that I went back. So I use these sort of rock paintings as those sort of memory, like another type of vessel to hold these memories, where I'm discarding them, but I'm bringing them back because I think, oh shit, I might need that as this journey goes along. But if you watch mine instead of Herzog's, you save yourself about an hour and 47 minutes.
You do.
So that's
You do. And I talked too long about Herzog's in an attempt to try and tell people how it feels familiar.
No, Todd, I think you're right on, especially that idea of a mountain in the way. I think that is what I was sort of dealing with. So I love that reading that you have. Yeah, it's sort of spot on.
Well, thanks. But I mean, I'm also curious about how that, it's funny in a lot of your films, you tie together this kind of mutual sadness, but mutual comedy, not comedy, but there's a humor in the sadness, right? And it's really, really hard sometimes to negotiate the where that wavers back and forth. Like sometimes I feel like my heart is being wrenched in certain parts, but then you do something that's, like you pull paintbrushes out of your rear end. So, there's this space that you find a place between that's really quite nice. It's really touching.
Well, I think I use humor to deal with my problems in life. That is just the way I sort of deflect.
Sure.
And you just sort of see that happening in the art. But I will say, getting back to Charlie Chaplin, Charlie had this great way of when things on the screen were sad, you were laughing, and when things on the screen were happy, you were crying. He had this great way to sort of flip the empathy. And I tried to learn that from him. And he also has a great way to set you up with humor before he sneaks in and jabs you with a little shocking bit of reality.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I mean, I don't like that, obviously, because I don't want to be set up. But at the same time, I love that because that's a really good way to get at that nerve. It's a really good way to get at that space unexpectedly, right?
Yeah, well, you could be set up. You don't need to be set up in film. You could be set up in a painting.
Yeah, I guess you could. Actually, can we look at one of those? Can we look at some of the studio problems? Because I think they kind of...
I would. Could you show the painting from this piece, though, so we could, because
yeah.
I like the way this painting came out.
Yes, totally. Hold on. I've got that over. Let's go here, and let's go back to...
Because for me, the journey wasn't, I couldn't say all I wanted to say with the film. That's why I go back and forth with all these mediums. I don't know if I can exactly say all I need to say with one of them. So I sort of bound, if I could, I would save myself a lot of time, maybe. But I go back and forth to sort of turn over every stone by using every medium specifically that has its own voice. I can't quite articulate it with one, so I need all these things.
Right. Is this same river, or is
this... That's it right there.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and you could see the sort of rocks on the top, those sort of memory rocks, and then, the river that was not there, it was sort of a cement river. But as a painting, I really like the way that one turned out.
Yeah, and I actually really enjoyed the element of the film where you're taking those rocks, which you've seemingly pulled from the boat as this kind of weight that's keeping you from moving forward, and then you're placing them on these shelves almost like artifacts of, it's almost like the memory, right? It's that thing that kept you held down, but then it winds up on a shelf almost as this sacred thing, right? So...
Right.
That's kind of a, it's funny, earlier Memory Vessel in the chat said, a vessel of memory, that's up my alley. And I remember a piece of hers actually where you would drop stones into a vessel of water, slowly raising the water, like participants in the piece did that, and it kind of affected like and I'm probably butchering this right now for Memory Vessel, and I apologize, but there was something really nice about the contact you made with that vessel as you sort of affected the water level, right? So
I like to see that Memory Vessel. That sounds great.
It's a great piece. John Park says, I love these films. We are a long way from the boys, meaning Joseph Boys, and that suits me fine. With the humor combined with absurd, I am reminded Pipolati Wrist, though obviously Rader's work is not related. Otherwise, to me, rambling, but I'm still making sense in my own thought here. That's kind of cool, actually. I didn't even think of Joseph Boys, but that's a really good reference to bring in here.
I'll take that.
Yeah, I would.
To be on the same show with Keith Haring and the Joseph Boys reference. I'll take that.
Yeah,
I'm putting that on my resume.
We can close now. We're done. So, all right. So can we go over? Hold on. I have another slide of this. I think I have the other side of this piece. Yeah, there we go. So the back side.
Yeah. See, I wasn't necessarily comfortable on the wall at a certain point with the painting because, like I said, I couldn't get the 2D element to say what I wanted to say. So these slowly started making their way off the wall where you could walk around them, and I could tell like a bigger story that I wasn't able to sort of do on the wall.
Yeah, and actually it's funny because I Hate Username 67 just jumped in and said, joined late. I see this more like a sculpture rather than a painting, more appropriately though as something in between. Why call them paintings? That's a good question, I think.
I love that question. I've been asked that a lot. Is this a sculpture? Is this a painting? I really don't give a shit. Like I love that question though, because I do got to admit sometimes I look at it with, we'll say, a sculptor's eye or a painting's eye, but I get that question because I think we're always trying to be comfortable with what we're looking at. Rauschenberg, people were like, what are these things, these collage things? And he had such trouble, and he made up that word combine. And he said, their combines. And then everyone said, oh, now I see. So, maybe I need to make up a word where, and to think of Calder's, mobile. He made up that word because people were negotiating what is this kinetic sculpture.
That's a great
and
point.
They do kind of sit between painting and sculpture. I agree. I use the word painting. I don't know. I definitely use the word painting all the time.
Well,
I see them as paintings. They started as paintings, but I definitely appreciate the question because it could be seen from the other side, certainly.
I feel like the piece in your studio problems with the bowler in a very sort of interesting way gets at that spot, right? Not in the same way these pieces do, but it looks at the relationship between the painting and the object and the function, the shift in function from that hat to the function of the painting. And I like how you try to supplant the function of the hat right into the painting piece on some level. Can we watch that?
I appreciate it. I'd love to.
Let me see if I can find it now, because I've got a terrifying mess over here. So let's just see if we can get to that. Hold on one second. And we're going to go to here. And we got to make Mike go away for a second. So let's make Mike go away. Sorry, Mike. Let's take a look. Was that like the first one I showed you? Wasn't that the first piece of Mike's I showed you?
I think that was the first one, yes.
What did you think of him when I showed you that? Were you like, what's going on? What's this guy up to?
I don't think so.
No?
I thought it was pretty...
I like this idea. Oh wait, where'd Mike
Let's
go?
get him up
we
back
lost
on the
we lost
screen.
Mike.
There he is.
Hi Mike. Sorry, I think that was the first piece when Terri was asking me about you. I think that was the first piece I showed her. It might have been the one where he's dragging his hand.
I think it's the one where you're dragging your hand.
Yeah.
There it is, like humor. I've had problems with humor, even with galleries and curators that wonder if I'm serious. But I wouldn't go through these lengths if I wasn't serious.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's such a weird question to ask, too. To me, I would wonder if you were serious if maybe you're... Well, I don't want to poke at certain things, and make it like, oh, this type of subject matter makes you not a serious painter, right? Because I think that it just depends on how you handle it. But I don't think humor should certainly be, questioned.
Yeah, it's what separates us from the animals,
Right.
It's a high form of communication. And again, it's the way I sort of filter things, and paradoxes are very funny to me. And the idea of a painting and what its function is, I started questioning those things that you were showing. A friend of mine, Joyce, said, Joyce Pensada, for your audience, she's a great painter, Pensato. She said, Mike, you should just set up the studio in your the camera in your studio and just shoot things, just anything, things you're thinking of. And that's what those sort of grow out. You can see the painting in the background. That was, maybe you showed that earlier. I don't know.
I kind of flew past it on the way to seeing the Same River Twice piece. But that was part of the Man versus Ultraman set. Is that correct?
It was, yeah. And that was here up in my studio. But like as an artist, you face all these sort of weird paradoxes all day long, and you negotiate them, and sometimes it doesn't come into your work. So I started seeing those as a interesting topic in art itself.
Right. You see something? You got?
I'm looking at Gregory Lech. Humor should not be discredited, especially in art.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a good point. Ben Hagenbush says, I love how you put these together, Mike. Humor is serious business, poster 333. So
Thank you, Ben.
you got support here, even if the galleries were,
Well, that's not an overall. That's just has happened. I don't want to say that's
sure. No, it's not. It's probably not overarching, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, let's look at another one. I want to pull up another one. Okay. Let's see what we got here.
That hat, by the way, is a nod to Chaplin.
Oh, you said Magritte.
I thought
Magritte.
And Magritte. Yeah, definitely Magritte. You can't get away from that. I like those little interludes between these pieces with the kayak.
That's the Delaware River, too.
Oh, nice. Okay. You got to spill it on this one, pal. I love this piece. And a very Roman Signer vibe. Memory Vessel says, love this. I Hate Username 67 says, Frank Zappa had a whole thing about, does humor belong in art? And it had something to do with how the industry and the market values seriousness. So
yeah, until maybe that's a great point. It's harder to sell in the art world.
Yeah, but then how do you explain somebody like Murakami, or
There are examples, but there's less of those than there are the other.
Okay.
Yeah. There certainly are examples. But these little things, people have said, and I could see that they're like what you're showing now, these little sort of Samuel Beckett plays, which is sort of this tragic humor that walks the line of humor and sadness, which you described earlier. But it's also about overcoming, pushing that rock up the hill. It's like a Sisyphus tale. If anything sort of drags through all of this, it's that pushing that rock up the hill for it to roll back down and push it up again the next day. And what you see in Chaplin a lot, like he's defeated constantly, but just keeps going.
Right. And I mean, I don't want to dwell on these pieces, too much, because you said you had a piece you're working on in the studio right now that you're actually really excited about, and your paintings or painting sculpture pieces on that line, I find to be really, really brilliant and interesting, and would love to learn more about those. Your smalls that you have up on your website are just like
beautiful.
Love those pieces.
I like that you like those. I don't do those very often. I abandoned those other ones. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, but could you do you want to show us what you're working on? Can you take?
Yeah, let me see if I could flip this around.
Okay.
Maybe I'll just carry that with me.
We're going for a walk, people.
This is. I like this idea of a tour.
Yeah, let's do a tour.
So we're flipping around. Okay, so I thought about beforehand, cleaning up a little. Most of the artists I know are very clean. I imagine, Todd, like the way you work, yours is pretty clean.
Yeah, I'll take you up there someday.
Okay, all right. But I work like this. This is my floor, and my sort of paint station.
Nice.
Paint in a box. I don't know what that is. It's a box of ties down here. These things are from the Potato Head series that was at the Brownstone. David Backus, shout out. I saw you in there earlier.
Yeah, he's hanging out.
So here's like a drawing I was working on and just working out some ideas. But what you see in the background is a film set. Let me back out a little bit. Is a film set also. I painted this floor brown and the wall brown and this old curtain. There's a chandelier up here and you can see where it changes. Uh-huh. There's a big collection of stuff for my next film piece, which is Three Stooges based.
Oh,
you kind of see a Mo wig on the left side, and that's going to be curly in the back.
My God.
But I kind of kept the studio as it is because I often come down and just pick things up off the floor, and I work on the floor, and I think, like, oh, this will be nice, and I just use that in the work. But here's the thing I'm working on now.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Can we get close on
Get
that?
up on this a little bit.
Yeah, Terri,
Try to hold it up.
I was gonna say Terri wants you to get in close.
Okay, I'll get him close, Terry. Is it my hands in the way? Sorry. So what it was a night fishing scene. Let me back out a little bit. You can see up top, maybe that moon and these sort of mountain up top. There's a fishing pool, and then there's water trickles down, and then there's a reflection of a moon down below.
Huh.
Wow.
And as I go up on this, there's a couple of people fishing maybe here. That piece was from the last show that I brought into this. And then up top there is, if I can get all the way up there. The moon is up top. Here's a fishing rod that's sort of poking out this way. And then you can sort of start to see, I'm starting to work the insides a little bit.
God, I love that. I love the
using ties a lot lately. I'll swing to the other side.
What drew you to the tie for these? I think it's a really, it really pairs well with the actual elements in the painting. And I can see relationships between this, the smalls, there's...
Well, and also at the Brownstone when he did the calendar, like this reminds me of the calendar pieces as well. When you saw them hanging, it was like that perpetual calendar going.
The ties I was using with I know we didn't cover anything like that, but those potato head things that I was doing, and I was doing those to sort of work quick in the studio. And I happen to have ties for those works, and they're laying on the floor. And if it's on the floor, it kind of is fair game. Like I didn't see it any different than a piece of paint. Like look at this blue thing.
Yeah.
I paint like what's the difference between that and a tie laying on the ground? So
yeah,
I just brought it up there. But there was also this, it was a night fishing. Maybe these are a business trip. Some business fishermen out getting their yayas out. Lordy Todd, look at that.
I was gonna say be careful, but he's probably not gonna hit you anyway. Don't worry, he's a terrible shot.
Careful. And then here's a few rocks that were in that piece that you saw.
Right.
Still kicking around.
Right.
There might even be one up there that I, reused.
There's something about how, I love how these sort of how these develop in and amongst the energy in your studio. I was going to use the word mess in your studio, but I'll use the word energy.
I don't mind.
No, I don't either, because I think that sometimes having all of those things at your disposal actually helps, right? And clearly it does here. So the mess, really kind of contributes, but then it gets out into a space like when we saw your works in the Brownstone art. And all of a sudden now they kind of take on this sort of monumentality. There's something about the dimensionality, the use of color and layers, all of these things. It's sort of like the contrast of a clean space around them, all of a sudden gives them this real. I'm trying to find the right word, and every word that comes into my head is wrong. So I'm gonna pause there. This is the best time to go to the chat. John Park says, it's true. There's nothing funny about Matthew Barney. Wait a minute. Somebody said Matthew Barney? Because I was thinking about that. Did I see that? Yeah. What were you saying?
Nothing. Go ahead.
And then...
I'm going to continue the tour while you read that. I'm going to take you out to the hallway to see a couple smalls.
Oh, yeah. Would love to see some smalls. 908-252, and I'm going to truncate it to that so I don't have to read the whole number without my glasses. It says, check out Signer. Some good humor there. Ben Hagenbush, your studio definitely shows how much you love what you do. You really are one with your work. Then 908-252 again says, got to get him up to the gorge, Todd. Yes. Oh, look at these. Look at these.
What's the gorge? I got to get to the gorge, I hear.
The gorge is where I live, actually.
Oh, all right.
Oh, these are...
So these are like, an extension. I thought of them as the models that I showed you earlier. I thought of making them like bigger, more developed models before I make larger ones. And then I realized, no, I like this scale. I want to continue on this scale. That was my father's tie, actually. This is the first time I used the tie.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Here's a couple more. We're losing light over in this corner, but
I might make a really obscure reference here, but I kind of love, Dan Flavin's work was always just kind of, I don't know, I always found him neither here nor there until I saw his icons, which are these tiny little fluorescent tube sculptures that hang on the wall. They're miniature. And all of a sudden, something about how he took them out of scale. He took them out of the scale you'd typically find fluorescent tubes like in 4-foot lengths or 6-foot lengths. All of a sudden now they were miniaturized, and there was something about that shift in scale. And seeing your smalls, in a much more sort of almost, iconic kind of way, really was really nice.
oh, thanks. I love Dan Flavin, actually.
Well, it's not that I don't love him. I don't love him, and I don't not love him. It's just that those icon pieces, I fell in love with those.
He's an artist that I forget about until I walk into a show of his work, and I'm like, man, what a genius this guy is.
Yeah, I think I'm probably the same. It's like you have to be in the space with that guy.
Agreed. He falls out of mind until you're there.
Right.
Yeah.
Much better use for the ties. It's about intimacy. Oh, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, okay. So what else did we want to point out? I mean, I don't want to like, with Mike's work, we could go in so many directions.
We can.
Right. So, of course, there's silver clouds, but I don't know how far off. What do you feel like you want to tell people, Mike? Do you have something you'd like to introduce, or you feel is relevant?
I think no, we just told quite a bit.
We did.
But that's what I'm working on now, is that painting, and then this idea we talked about film is where I'm going with the Three Stooges next. If you want to hear a quick elevator pitch about that, I'll give it to you.
I would love that.
So I was watching a police, I've told this before, but I'll take it. I was watching a police show like a CSI or Sherry in the Sky was watching. And I was watching and noticed that in an ensemble cast, you have like the funny person, the serious person, the genius, the goof, the hard ass, the soft, like all these people add up to one human, And I thought, oh, is that why this is so comfortable, relatable? And that's in these TV shows. Not all, certainly there's great television out there, but so I started seeing the Three Stooges like that when I was watching it, like how perfectly they line up with sort of this Freudian id, ego, and superego. I mean, it is straight on. Like Curly is such id, 100% id. Mo is the ego, there's just anger running around. And Larry is the superego, which is like this fulcrum that balances the two, right?
Yeah.
So I started seeing that how, as an artist, maybe I'm balancing these personalities as I'm trying to make work. I mean, you referenced a process earlier, right? So during my process, am I negotiating all these different aspects, and are they pushing and pulling me with different wants and needs, and how am I satisfying the whole between these parts? So I'm going to use the Three Stooges as a vessel to sort of explore that as they try to make a painting. You know, the idea is they keep trying to make a circular painting, and it keeps coming out a square. So that's like the running gag, and that's the thing that they sort of have to negotiate between each other.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the function of the videos on some level, is to show us that sort of process and how it's negotiating all those spaces. Or at least it feels that way. I mean, I'm not sure that if that was your intention when you made those videos, but it feels like when I'm looking at those videos, I like just take the Chaplin hat, right? And he's going. Where's he going?
Keep talking, Todd.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
All right, good. So like when you made the painting of the Chaplin hat, right? Here you are engaging in, oh shit, this is going to be good. And then you looked at it, right? You looked at the hat, you looked at the painting, and all of a sudden now you're cutting. And so we kind of see you negotiating all that kind of terrain that you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also think I didn't grow up with art like a lot of people here in New York do. It wasn't in my family life.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so I often question its function through the eyes of maybe where I grew up. You know.
Yeah.
I didn't go to museums and things like that. So what do you do with this painting? You know, you can't wear it, you can't eat it. Well, so I went over and brought, since we were talking about Larry, I brought this. This is Larry. And I started seeing the Three Stooges as different simple shapes. Like Curly is certainly a circle, Mo is a rigid square.
Right.
And because Larry is the fulcrum, you know, I
He's
started
the
seeing him as a pyramid.
Or cone.
So this was the Larry piece that I have going on so far. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh my God.
They'll have, I have suits that match so they can sort of be interchangeable. And I've been working on this for a while, but several things have gotten in the way, including teaching.
Yeah, of course. Memory Vessel earlier said big studio, and it reminded me of the first time I was in your studio, and you don't even remember that time that I was in your studio. Can I tell how I was in your studio?
Yeah, absolutely.
So many moons ago, when I had my studio right down the street from Mike's, Mike had a gallery, a very well-known and well-regarded gallery called Tastes Like Chicken, in that very space, where he curated some fantastic shows. And
Mike and Sherry in the Sky. Sherry curated a lot of those.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to not credit Sherry in the Sky for that. So there were some fantastic shows that were held in that space. And I can remember the first time walking in there and having like my head came off. I mean, yeah, there was great art in the space, but I was like looking around like, oh man, what a beautiful, space with windows and skylights. I mean, so you gotta dream of a studio there. It's just like such a dream.
When we came down here, there was a line about 2 or 3 blocks up that you didn't cross. I've been here since the 90s.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of studio space down here when we first came, a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, well, my second studio was about 6 or 8 blocks towards Greenpoint from you by Division. That was my second.
Yeah, I know that building. Yeah, I know that building.
Yeah, we had a good-sized chunk of land in there. But anyway, that's not for everybody here.
There's a couple of people here that were in Tastes Like Chicken. I saw 2 really great artists, Jim Nolan and Linda Post. I saw their names come through.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Sort of tie it all together.
Yeah, oh, that's perfect. All right, last question for you. You talk about Mr. Potato Head, and how that toy might have been one of your first sculptures, or sculpture-like objects growing up that allowed you to... Did Star Wars toys ever have a role in your life when you were young? Because I want to bring this back to Star Wars Day for a second, just momentarily. To qualify this...
Yeah, I mean, I had them.
I was just going to say, to qualify this for the audience, Mike and I are both very big sci-fi fans, not just Star Wars, but other things too. And so I'm kind of milking my own sort of interest here. I know, but go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I had Star Wars toys, the little figures. A couple of the ships were expensive, but I did have an X-wing, which was amazing.
I did too. I had an
And
X-wing.
you did?
Oh, yeah.
I know you have that Jawa crawler, Todd. God,
do.
that thing's amazing.
I do. I've got it. I
So
should have
jealous
had it up
about
here.
When I come to the gorge, whatever the hell that is, I want to see the Jawa crawler.
I will pull it out. As a matter of fact, I only had one play set, and it was that Jawa crawler. That's the only one I had. I had one ship. I had the X-wing. And I had a land speeder too. But
yeah, I did have that. But the crawler, though, come on.
yeah.
But I did play with these. Talking like, let's bring it back to Harold and the Purple Crayon. I did play with these and sort of create your own world and make your own little Star Wars movie, which I don't think is that far from what I'm doing when I talk about Three Stooges and reappropriating them. I do have, like this here still. This is from Ultraman.
Yeah.
The 60s TV show. I do have some of these sitting around for inspiration.
Right. But I think they're important. I think those things are important. And I love that notion you said earlier that you became a world builder, because I think that's what these things propelled us into. It was an avenue into our imagination for world building. And I feel like, the 70s and the 80s, even the 90s, with if you go into things like if you go into He-Man and G.I. Joe, and that was after my time. But I think there was still something there for that. There was still an avenue into that was just, I don't know, it was a good place.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I'm still down there on my hands and knees. I work on my hands and knees a lot, on the floor in the very same way that we play.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great space. It's a great place to be. I remember laying on.
You can see half of it's divided because Sherry in the Sky, we had to build a wall because of the chaos that is over here. She tries to separate herself because she is such a different kind of art maker. It's a great, like when you cross the divide, it's such a different.
Oh yeah.
Different. Yeah. No.
Well, I love that you guys, put the divider there. I don't know whose choice the divider was, but
it was not mine. But it was it was survival.
Well, Sherry in the Sky, good move on your part. Yeah, I remember, and I'll just throw this out there, when I had a studio with I Hate Username 67, there were a few times when we were considering a wall so that the encroachment, because it just starts to spill. But anyway, do you have things you want to ask, Mike? Do you have anything? Did we cover? We covered a lot of ground tonight.
We covered a lot of ground tonight.
I hogged this. I am so sorry.
No.
I hogged this. I just realized.
I could see that coming, though. I knew it when we had him on. I'm like, he's going to want to talk to Mike all night long.
Oh, I'm sorry. I love listening to you on this show, Terry.
Yeah, Mike was saying to me earlier that he loves listening to you on the show, and here I am, not even.
All right, that's okay.
I'm a terrible person.
All right. Well, Mike's career, Mike, you span all these different things. So for gathering notes and everything, they're kind of all over the place, like the artwork, because you're kind of reining in all these different mediums. So I don't know if you wanted to talk about one last thing, because I felt like this was something that everybody could go see, the Silver Linings piece. I know that was probably
Silver Clouds, is it called?
Silver Linings.
Silver
It's a
Linings?
public permanent exhibit.
Do you have the model?
Newark, New Jersey.
Let me see if I might have it up on the shelf. If you want to go ahead and fill in the information, Terry, I'll go look.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't know if we have a little film on it.
We do, but do you want to tell people what we're going to watch before we put it up there?
Well, this is actually a public installation that was done several years ago. And I feel like it really embraces the surroundings. It's an industrial landscape, and he placed these clouds there, and they are very dependent upon the people viewing them as well as what's happening in the environment. So I thought that would be something really fantastic to look at tonight if we could. I know that that's been probably, put that past you, but that was something that really caught my attention.
Yeah, there's a video of, so this is a public installation that Mike has in Newark, New Jersey, and it's a fantastic piece that I'm really fascinated with the model.
You can all go and see it.
You can all go and see it.
What I love.
And I'm just going to play a quick little bit of it, of the installation of it, and then I'll pop back to Mike so he can show us the model, because the model is just, I love the model.
Yeah.
But let me throw...
It's in Fairmont, New Jersey, which is just a whisper past Newark.
Oh, it's in Fairmont.
Okay.
Yeah.
My apologies there. All right, let's take a look at this real quick.
It's internal.
I'm going to just pop ahead a little bit further. Up. There we go. All right, Mike, I've got it cued at the part where the model comes into the video, but do you want to show us this first real quick?
Okay, I'll show you the model. So this was a giant art wall in Fairmont that was sort of put together by David Adjaji. And David built the African American Museum in Washington, D.C. Just a really lovely man and obviously a phenomenal architect. It was curated by Danny Simmons and Victor Davidson. But this was a model that I made as to sort of get the gig, we'll say. It has two parts, and one is a version with the trees, because they're going to eventually make more of a park around it. And this is a little bit more what it looks like when they first did it, which is a lot of street around it. But they did build some parts, but I had this sort of switchable because we weren't really sure which direction it would go right now. So here's a model, and there's these clouds. Let me see if I can bring this up here, that are reflective, that are underneath them. And what happens when you walk under it, like these little folks are here, you can look up and see yourself in these silver linings. But what it also is sort of a collaboration with the sun, let's say. Let me turn on this flashlight, because let me see if this reads, Todd. I don't. Okay. Like.
I think it turned off.
Okay, there we go. So what happens is, as the sun rises, the clouds emerge.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful.
And then they sort of disappear east and west like that.
That's beautiful.
So every day, we have this clouds come out. There we go. That maybe is a little bit. Clouds come out and disappear. So the clouds come out. You can sort of see yourself in this silver reflection as they disappear throughout the day. So it's sort of this cyclical thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's weird when I, having gone through this conversation with you tonight, there's a mixture of happiness and sadness together in this, right? As you sort of go through it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I don't even.
Maybe that film shows it a little better than what I just did.
Well, I mean, I could just,
No.
it does do a good job in the film. It kind of just looks like I can show everybody how it unfolds, but this is a really good example. So he's got a clock running in the corner, and you can see how the great. All right. So,
Well, here's kind of a close-up of it a little bit.
yeah, there you go. Getting a little of the reflectivity in the shadow too, which is kind of nice.
It was a tremendous experience. It was difficult. Obviously, there had to be architects involved and engineers
Right.
to help me through it. A lot of the math was well beyond my scope. So
Well,
go ahead, yeah.
we got David Backus here saying, also love Mike's robe formalism animation pieces from early pandemic times.
Yes.
Poster 333 agrees. Amanda Toulin says, really cool. Carolyn Thaus has got to run. Thank you, Mike. So fabulous hearing from you and showing us your
Thank you,
studio.
Carolyn.
Let's see. John Park says, love this. The film with the echoing blue in the studio sky with the actual blue of the sky upon installation is sublime. So that's really nice. Pumpkin Audrey says, love the cloud. So I'm glad we got to this, and I'm really glad you mentioned the sort of combination of the happiness and the sadness with the passing of time and the reflectivity. But I feel like, Mike, you've been so generous with your time tonight and talking to us. And
Yeah, I'm worried. Are people still out there?
there are people still out there.
Yeah.
People are still out there for sure. So, but I feel like maybe we should give Mike a chance to go to bed. What do you think? Yeah.
That might be
It's been I really appreciate you two having me on. As you know, I tune in quite a bit and enjoy both of your dissections of art and watching you.
Well,
So it's been an honor. I'm thrilled you had me on, especially on May the 4th.
yeah, well,
May
it's
the 4th.
appropriate for you to be on May the 4th, and I'm glad that we could get you in here before you're off for the summer now. You're heading out, right?
I am. I don't know if I use the word off, but well, yeah, I'll use the word off. I'm off.
Nice. Well, you enjoy.
And a shout out to my niece Tabitha, who said she was tuning in, who's also a Star Wars fan.
Oh, nice.
Oh, cool.
Nice, Tabitha. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm the real Han Solo, Tabitha. So, Oh, do you know what I wanted to show?
What?
I'll show it after Mike goes home, because Mike's already seen it. But I'm going to show that photo Mike knows that I have in the background, because that's kind of my thing.
Oh.
You've seen that photo I have, right?
The one where you at the convention?
Yes, that one.
Of course,
Oh.
I've seen.
All
He
right,
didn't
good.
blow
Jealous.
your cover either.
No,
Say,
you
"Oh,
did a
the
really
one
good
with
job
you
in not
and,
blowing my
blah, blah,
my
blah."
surprise on that. You
Yeah.
did really well there. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was good.
That was good.
Mike,
I think you had a giant version in your office. It's cool.
I think I did. I blew it up. But Mike, thank you for this. We really appreciate getting to talk to you. It was an honor to be in your studio. I love your practice. Your work really touches me, and I feel very connected by it. So I appreciate that.
Well, that means a lot. It really does mean a lot to me. I appreciate it. And thanks so much for everybody who tuned in. That also means a lot to me.
All right. Well, you take care. Let's stay in touch over the summer. We're coming up to see you. We're going to drive that camper up there and come
Yes.
say hi.
The new van.
Fantastic.
All right, man.
I'll see y'all soon.
All right. You
All
take
right.
care. Thanks
All right,
again.
take care.
Thanks.
Oh my God, we're back on the ship.
Oh, we're back on the show.
All right. I want to show one. I got to show one last thing for Star Wars Day.
How are you gonna get it?
That was a great. I loved having Mike. I'm gonna
I
reach.
love
I'm gonna.
having
I gotta.
Mike,
I gotta crawl back. I gotta crawl back in the
Watch
cockpit
the ship.
of the Millennium Falcon here.
yeah.
Let me just slide over for a second.
Sure, I
You wanna
can slide
over. I
over.
gotta get behind you.
Sure, sure.
Reach into a compartment here. One of my smuggling cargo holes here. Just dropped something. I have no idea what it was. Probably damaging something. All right. So for Star Wars Day, I take out a photo because this is gold. Some of you already have seen this, so I don't know. But this is like one of my favorite moments of all time. That's me with Mark Hamill and my son. So if ever you've met if ever you've had the opportunity to meet your hero, like I came around the corner and I started to like get choked up. I was like, and he just gave me a big hug.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God. So this guy. All right,
Yeah.
so Star Wars Day.
Star Wars Day.
That's what I got for Star Wars Day.
Yeah.
I love talking to Mike.
I do too.
He's such a good soul, a genuine, like, I love.
He really is. And I love his exploration, and I feel like he's willing to be vulnerable and explore and
Yeah.
present his artwork. And I think there's a lot of empathy in that
Yeah.
with art.
Yeah, and this whole idea of deflecting that pain or that sadness with humor, that's definitely something I think a lot of us can relate to, especially as, you know, as teachers, as human beings, but as teachers, as artists, as people that are putting themselves out there. There's an act of vulnerability there in the first place, right? And so when something happens, when something either moves you or, you know, yeah, humor's one way to deal with it,
Yeah.
but an open level of vulnerability, showing people that you're human in that way,
Yeah.
I think that's something that we've lost touch with
Yeah,
a little bit.
I think it's really bold.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
So thanks to Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
And thanks to all of you for coming. You guys are awesome. I loved hearing all of your comments and talking with all of you. And hopefully you'll be back to watch again and see our next rendition of this. John Park, I really loved Mike. Thanks for the introduction to his work. You're welcome, John. Thank you for coming. You can go, you can Google him. There's a couple of Mike Raders out there. Look up Mike Rader Artist to see, and hopefully we'll see him out there in the
I'm sure we're gonna see
exhibition
him
world soon.
again. Yes.
Amanda Toulon says love the whimsical approach. It makes sense that the pieces are three-dimensional. Ben says, I know it's such an amazing talent from Mom. Thanks, Mike. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. And I'm saying blah, blah, blah to our bots that are throwing things in there, not to your comments. Sherry in the Sky says, awesome. Memory Vessel says, hyper. Ken Millington says, great show. Thanks. Ben Hagenbush, this was a fantastic show, guys. Thanks again. Gregory Lutch, great show. I joined tonight to see my friends since college, but I'll be back. You are great. Hey, thank you. That's awesome. And on that note,
yes.
I think we need to say cheers.
Cheers.
And happy Star Wars Day.
May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with you. And also with you.
Yeah.
All right, we're out of here. Good night, everybody. Thanks again.